Welcome to Promote, Profit, Publish. I'm your host, Juliette Clark, and today we're going to talk about publicity with our friend Richard Kaye. But before we get started, I want to remind you we are running the AI Author Academy again in June. We ran it a couple months ago and great results. We taught our people how to build their avatar stronger. AI is a garbage in, garbage out system. So there are certain things that you have to do really well to get good results from AI as an author. But once you get those things, all of the platform building is streamlined. And, that's what so many of you complain about is it's so hard to build a platform to get those books, products, and services sold. So I encourage you, we're running it again in June, to go over to aiauthoracademy.com. That's aiauthoracademy.com and get yourself signed up. All right. So today's guest is Dr. Richard Kaye, and he's the Maestro of Business Acceleration. For over 2 decades, Richard has been the driving force behind success stories of countless entrepreneurs, propelling them to unparalleled growth. His secret weapon? Profitable, powerful publicity that transforms businesses from early stage infancy to revenue-rich maturity. Richard isn't just a consultant. He's a trailblazer in the world of evolution. A sought-after guest on podcasts and webinars, he's left his mark on the radio and television programs of the world, gracing the screens on KGTV in San Diego and KTLA in Los Angeles. Forbes magazine has acknowledged his expertise, and PBS featured a special that showcased his profound impact. He is a proud recipient of the White House Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award. And you can schedule a call with Richard, and we'll mention this at the end of again, if you don't have a pen handy, http://talkaboutpublicity.com. So looking forward to that talk with Richard. But before we get over there, do you want to feel young? Do you want to feel young again? If you're older like I am? Well, Andy Nam and LifeWave have the answer for you. It's a way to reclaim your youth, strut around like a boss, and heal faster than a superhero. If this sounds something like something you'd want to pursue, and it's holistic, that's the best part, then go on over and schedule an appointment, a free consultation with Andy at calendly.com/thefoolishcouple/superbrand. I use this product myself. I love it. I'm still an athlete at 63, and it hurts. It hurts a lot in LifeWave Health. So go on over and schedule that appointment with Andy. And stay tuned for our interview with Richard.
Are we doing this now?
We're doing this now. Welcome to the show, Richard.
Okay, this works.
How are you doing today?
Outstanding.
So I'm excited to talk about publicity because people always think about, how they're going to build their platform. What do they get? How are we going to publish the book? But they don't realize how much work comes afterwards to keep that book at the top of Amazon, keep it in the public eye. And I see a lot of people just kind of give up at that point.
When people don't know, when we don't know, there's a couple of ways of approaching life. Either I'm going to go through this thing, or as you say, I'm going to give up because it's work. People say, I'm going to publish a book on Amazon and I'm going to be a bestseller. No, you're going to have a book on Amazon.
Well, it is. And that I think that's the biggest thing is when we get people up, we do that hype, we push them to an Amazon bestseller. And it's exciting, but Amazon is an hour by hour algorithm. So you do have to pick that up. And once it's released, you're competing against all of those other books that have reviews, all those other things that, spice up the algorithms too. So you've got to do a lot of work. So when people are looking at hiring a company, what's the difference between the PR, the advertising, and publicity?
It's a great question, and I'll tell you why, because most people confuse them. And I also, before I answer that, I want to speak to what is it about? Ladies and gentlemen, 7,500 books are released every single day. Yes. Every day. How does your book stand out from the crowd? How do you stand out from the crowd? Last time I looked, which was fairly recent, there were 33 million books on Amazon. You know, it's like going blindfolded into a library and saying, okay, I'm going to get the best book there. So PR, which is what most people refer to when they're thinking of getting the word out there, public relations, is you or you hire someone to go make phone calls, send emails, yes, even send faxes with a good headline, a hook, and then you pray to God. Someone says, oh, I like this story. I want to run with it. Does it work? Beautifully. Is it effective? Well, you know, it's really a crapshoot because you've got to get the right moment, the right time.
Mhm.
Advertising, we're all used to. If you watch television or you go to the movies or you read anything or you drive up streets, down streets, marquees all over the place, that's advertising. You know someone is paid for that. You know that it's there to make an impression, so you make a buying decision. Marketing is an end cap at Costco or at a supermarket. It's to get your attention. It's most visible. That's more point of sale. Great. All that's nice. What's publicity? Publicity, in the way that we do it, we guarantee that you will be featured in big city newspapers, in magazines, on stages. As a matter of fact, at the end of this, Juliet, I'm going to give your listeners something, how to leverage any publicity you've got. If you've been in anything, in a magazine, even on a podcast, how do you leverage that? You must have top of mind awareness. So publicity is getting you out into the world. And here's the key. So people say, I've heard your name. I've seen you around town. And if you'd like, I can share a story about how I grew my chiropractic practice on publicity. That's what it's about.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I used to, when I lived in LA, I had a billboard on Newhall Ranch Road when I was a real estate broker. And it was kind of funny because about halfway into the contract, I realized that every small child in town knew my name,
Mm,
but they weren't the person, they weren't the people with the money.
right, right. That's the key. It's who's your target. So when you want to have you want to have your name popular. When I was practicing chiropractic, and a buddy of mine was faced with a malpractice suit, the attorneys in our group said, doesn't make a difference. Just make sure they spell your name right in the newspaper because people remember the name. What it was about fades. So
Mm.
it's always an interesting perspective. I'd
And
rather not. Yeah, yeah, go
what
ahead.
is that saying about all publicity is good publicity?
Sure, because it's name recognition.
Uh-huh.
It's name recognition. I don't want to go down a political rabbit hole, but that's what publicity is about during these crazy times. It's name recognition. It's name recognition. That's all. That's why they all raise money. Just remember the name. How many
Mhm.
times we go in to vote and, oh, I recognize that name. I have no idea what party, what they're about. I know their name. That's publicity.
Yeah, and the sound bites. I think that's one of the things that most people don't understand is even getting on a TV show, it's not all about you. It's the sound bites that will encourage people to remember you. And it's not go by my book. A lot of times it's that nugget that's relevant in that particular time
It
space.
rattles around in your head. You're absolutely right. And it
Yeah.
comes back to, I've heard your name. And that's how I grew my chiropractic practice. They knew my name. So I was
Uh,
all over the media in San Diego, and they knew my name.
there
It's
you
called
go. There you go.
top of mind awareness.
So I think one of the things that really confounds authors the most because they don't have experience with it is the scary prospect of how do I pitch? How do I get in front of someone? Can you tell us a little bit about, that process? And I'm sure there are ways to do it and there are ways not to do it. I happen to know that from the people who pitch my show.
There's ways to do everything. I'll begin with what not to do, and that's don't be a pain. Don't keep nudging, because people say, hey, I got other people I want to deal with. if you don't have the proper resources and connections, engage with people who do. And Julia, that's where you're brilliant with people, getting them out into the world and getting them out there. There are three kinds of publishers, ladies and gentlemen, and this is a 50,000-foot view. There's the big boys, the Random, the Putnam. If they take you on, they're going to ask a very important question. What's your marketing budget? And if you don't have one, if they take you on, what do? You get bragging rights. Hey, Random House published my book. Who's reading it? Well, they won't take it on unless you've got a budget. And the downside of Random House, and I'm just using them as a metaphor here, of course, is that they own the copyright on your book. You can't do a thing with it for 5 years. Got a better offer that comes along, a movie deal? No, they own it, and you get very little in residual. They get the money.
Yeah.
Then Juliet, there's you and me, ladies and gentlemen, you and us, as we can go on Amazon KDP and publish a book, and you get to say, I'm a published author. Well, who's reading it? Well, maybe my mother, maybe my sister, if you're lucky. Because
Right, if you're lucky. I think my grandmother bought all the copies of my very first book.
oh, there you go. Because there's no budget. Then you have what we do here, what Julia does is a hybrid publisher. A publisher gets you out into the world. You own the rights, we do the marketing, the publicity, get you on stages so that, boy, I'll take that thought in a moment, so that people know of the book. Why do people buy a book? Because they've heard of it and a friend told them it's good. And ladies and gentlemen, when you go into a bookstore, unless you're going for that particular book, why do you take a book off the shelf or in a library? The title and the cover. You must split test the cover. And that's one of the things we do, is split test the covers so that they are attractive to people. And it's, again, always top of mind awareness that gets your book out into the world. And that rabbit hole, I said I was going to go, don't plan on selling 1 million books. That's not the goal.
Yeah.
The goal is, how am I going to make $1 million on the books?
Right.
Unless your name is Michael Connolly or John Grisham or someone like that, the odds of you making significant income from the book are not large. It's the courses and the programs and the workshops that you have behind them. Yes. So we know people, we work with people to get that place, and then the ongoing publicity.
That is so true. And I'm very transparent when I talk to people. I tell them right off the bat, you are probably not going to directly get ROI from this publishing package. Chances are you will not sell enough books to cover it. Yes. So what is that next project that book is the nurture tool for? Because that next project, when you're charging 4, 5, 6,000, for a program, you've paid for that book and usually 2 to 3 programs. Right. So you have to have that next step in place. Now, when you guys work with people in the pitching, I know you pitch the book, but do you also pitch the programs with it so people know their best steps, or how does that all work?
We let people know that they are there. That's not our niche. We're going to stay in our lane. And we someone asked me the other day, boy, that thought just disappeared. We know where our niche is. We do not develop the courses. That's what it is. They asked us, do we do podcasts too? That's not our thing. There are a gazillion people out there. And just like you, Juliet, you know these people, sometimes probably the same people, and we can refer to them. We don't want to take money from someone just like you. And it's one of the reasons I like you. Unless there's honesty, integrity, and we tell them, unless this is a vanity project, don't plan on making money on the book. And we've got a client like that. She just wanted her book out to the world. God bless her. She's got the money and she can do that. Most people want to make money. And again, that's on the back end. Someone you and I know is a publicist. And when Michael and I had this conversation, he had 100 New York Times best-selling books and 1,000 Amazon #1 books. So Michael, how many people made money on their books? 2.
Ooh, yeah, that's wild.
They had the money on the back end. So
Yeah. So if I were to come to you and I wanted something, let's say you got me in the LA Times, how can I use that article? I mean, obviously the people who read it now have awareness of me, but can I use that to leverage other things?
absolutely. And ladies and gentlemen, that's what you're going to get at the end of this conversation. 10 ways to leverage your publicity. So stay around. And again, unless you've hired a big company like, who did I use? Random, they own the rights, but you can still leverage the fact that you're a published author with them. And I'll just give you an overview. Send that. I mean, I'll give you an example. My email signature says recipient of the White House Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award. That's leverage. Now, sidebar, when I got that, it's like, oh my God, how do they even know who I am? And it's not political. It's not political, by the way. It's the White House, not the person there. So I don't care what side of the fence you're on.
Right.
That's called leverage. You include your outstanding awards in your email when you're pitching to somebody, a prospect. You weave it into the story. Total transparency, as I just did. Otherwise, you wouldn't know unless you get emails from me that I'm the recipient of that award. So when people know that, it's like, oh, wow. And, we talked about my wife. She's got 12 prestigious awards for her books. And that's part of her signature. I don't think she has all of them there, but part of them. You let people know that other people recognize you. How many times, let's use the music industry. Let's say that you've been under a rock for the past decade and you never heard of Taylor Swift, but you hear everyone talking about her. You might be inclined to say, well, what does she do? Let me hear her.
Right.
And then you make your own decisions. Juliet, when I started my chiropractic practice, and ladies and gentlemen, this story is going to sound like it's about me. It is because it's my story. Please take this as a metaphor of what publicity does. There were 300 chiropractors in San Diego when I started my practice. How do you start or grow any business in a crowded field? And in spite of how wonderful, brilliant, sharp, ladies and gentlemen, you're in a crowded field. Okay, just recognize that. Well, I got myself invited to a morning television talk show. And then I turned that into being invited back every month. Then I got an article in the San Diego Tribune. Then I got an article in the Los Angeles Times. Now I'm going to pause here because people say, well, I only want an article in my town.
Mhm.
Well, people are not going to drive from Los Angeles to San Diego, especially during rush hour. Yeah.
I can attest to that. Nobody does it.
But now, and I had reprints of that, color reprints. They were color pictures. What does that say? They're writing about me. They're writing about me. But here's the key, ladies and gentlemen. One day I get a phone call from the producer of ABC News. The question was something akin to, who are you? What are you talking about? Well, we're seeing your name around town. We're hearing about you. Now I got a 6:30 news segment.
Nice.
Then I got a similar call from the producer at PBS. Similar kinds of questions. We're hearing about you. Well, I got a PBS segment about me. I'm no longer one of 300 chiropractors. I have top of mind awareness. People heard my name all over town. And there were other articles and radios and things like that. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what publicity does for you. You want someone to say, I've heard about you.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. That's what it accomplishes. Then it's up to you to do the business beyond that, obviously. That's what publicity does for you. Does a best-selling book help? Absolutely. Juliet's masterful at that. Get your book, get the publicity beyond over under it, and you build it. And then it's a legacy and your brand is out there.
Yeah. And don't wait until your book is done at the editor to start. I'm going to tell you guys just really briefly. I was the #1 listing agent in an office of 400. That didn't happen because I got into real estate and I liked it. It happened because I came into real estate with a big marketing budget. So my name was out there like that. And within, so rookie of the year, the first one, top listing agent within 4 or 5 years. So that's that planning, that what is it going to cost? And everyone should be doing this at the beginning anyway. What is it going to cost for publishing? What does that book developer cost? You know, what is the publicity for this? How am I going to keep it ongoing? All of that needs to be budgeted in advance. It's not just, oh, well, my book is done, so now I'm going to find out how much that costs. If you wait, chances are you're going to have problems. So
I love that you told that story, because people will tell us, oh, I want to wait till the book's done. And my response is, when was the last time you saw a commercial for a movie and it said opening tonight in theaters near you?
right.
It's opening next year. Yes.
Yeah. So one of the big lessons I learned early on, I worked at Chiat Advertising. And I came on right after the famous 1984 that they won all the Apple commercial. And you guys, a lot of you may not know this. When Apple put out when Chiat put out that commercial, Apple didn't even have a product. And people thought that they were crazy. Their investors thought they were crazy. So that's just an example, you know, even at an idea stage, you can start planning all of this and really get it out there. That commercial won a lot of awards, an awful lot of awards, and there was no product.
Yes.
So there's no reason why you can't follow that model as well. If you're an expert, you already know what that book is about. So Richard, I've never asked you this question, but it just popped in my head. If I'm somebody who has an upcoming book and I just want to come to you and get publicity for my expertise, is that something you guys can do? And, you know, the author of the upcoming book, blah, 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 and just shining the spotlight on that expertise before the book even comes out.
And then you build upon that. And oh, by the way, here's my new book. So the answer is, it's about you. It's not about the book. It's not about the business. We have some very wealthy clients, 2 billionaire clients. They haven't even written their books yet. Okay. It's the business that is beyond that. So ladies and gentlemen, don't get stuck in a rut of saying, I don't have a book yet. Well, yet is an operative word because it suggests there will be one, and you may not need one. So Julia, yes, we get people on stages. As a matter of fact, we have an event coming up the end, it's coming up soon, the end of June, and it's called Trailblazers Summit and Conference. I'll send you information, Juliet. On Friday, I called, and you would know, a long time ago, friend of mine, Lisa Nichols. She says, I'm in. Who we got? We got Jack Hanfield. No, we don't have Jack. We got Mark Victor Hansen. I've got Dennis Waitley, John D. Martini. We've got some really amazing people, and I'll get you information if your audience may be interested in this. And it's free to come and play and hear from people who are true, absolute trailblazers. We're having a conversation with Michael Gerber today of eMyth. I'll be calling another friend of mine, Barnett Bain. Now, you may not know Barnett's name. He produced What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams. And I brought him to CEO Space many, many years ago. See, this is publicity. And there'll be opportunities for people to speak there. This is publicity.
It is.
What does it do for you, Juliet, or anyone listening, to say, I shared the stage with Lisa Nichols, or I shared the stage with Michael Gerber. Juliet and I met through an organization that is now pretty much non-functioning called CEO Space, or you may have known it as Income Builders International, IBI. And we had pictures with some amazing people because you get to know them. That's publicity. You go to galas and black tie events and, you take pictures with people. You say, hey, I know that person, but that's not important. Juliet, you know the expression, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
It's who you know. Yes.
Take that a step further. It's who knows you.
Mm-hmm.
It's who knows you. So that's what publicity does. You get to know them, but they get to know you.
So I'm going to just take that for a minute, if you don't mind. When Richard is talking about these speaking events and you going and you're being seen with these people, also go and talk to the other people there, whether you're speaking or you're not speaking. Because we actually had a woman several years ago, she had a brilliant book, and she used to fly into events, big events. So there was one in Germany with Peter Drucker, I think. And she said, oh, I'm flying into this event and then I'm going to fly out. And I'm like, why aren't you staying and talking to the people in the audience? We actually put a quiz together for her. And the people who met the criteria, I asked her to stay for 2 days, set up appointments with those people, just 15 minutes, half hour, get to know them, talk to them. She did 4 times more business than she'd ever done in an event. And it was as simple as talking to people.
Hello.
Don't ever think you're so big that you're just going to fly in and fly out. Be accessible, because that's where people remember that, oh, I met Richard Kaye at this event. He was lovely. I would love to talk to him more and work with him sometime. It's as simple as that sometimes in getting the business from those things.
And show up in service. Mm-hmm. Don't ever show up to take. How much can you give?
Yeah.
And that, Juliet, what you said, that's what people remember. I'm just putting it in different contexts. People remember, boy, that person came and all they wanted was my leads. No. Yeah. How can you serve people? Who do you remember most? An emotional connection. We don't remember mundane stuff, but remember the emotional stuff. Mm-hmm. You go back to your childhood. So show up in service to people. And that's brilliant mentoring, Juliet. Stay, hang out, talk with people. Yeah. No one's too big to come up, get on a stage and say, I'm out of here, because they'll remember that too.
Yes, they do. I actually went to an event one time where the person had a hot mic and told security to get these people away from her. And that was on day 1. And I was so blown away. She also said that you'll love this, Richard, being on the back end of many events. She also got up on stage at first and she said, we're just going to play it by ear for the next 4 days. I'm going to get downloads and we're just going to go where spirit takes me. And being on the backside of those events, you know that every single minute is accounted for and scripted. And I thought, I don't know how many people in this room are newbies, but I will never buy anything from her. That was so out of integrity.
Yeah. It brings up a memory. Many years ago, John Gray from Men Are From Mars, by the way, he's on this Trailblazers thing too, was speaking at this CEO Space conference. And as all our faculty did, they hung around. And a young lady was asking me, gee, I need a good endorsement for my book. It was a relationship book. I said, well, wait a minute. And I went over to John, and John, being as gracious, he said, well, of course, bring her over here. And she's got a great endorsement from John Gray. That's how this world we live in works. He could have, John would not, no, I'm off stage, I'm out of here. No, he's just hanging around, schmoozing and meeting people and being in service.
And that is such a wonderful story, because we've actually had people where we've reached out and they'll say, oh yeah, I'll write it if you buy 1,000 books. Well, what am I going to do with 1,000 of your books? And basically, I'm paying you, if you're making $2-3 a book, I'm paying you $2,000-$3,000 for that. It's just not authentic. So, Richard, tell us where we can get this free gift and how we can get a hold of you if we want to explore, maybe future publicity or publicity today.
The easiest way to get in touch with me is talkaboutpublicity.com. all one word, no punctuation, talkaboutpublicity.com takes you right to my calendar. Just set up a call. We'll explore how we may be able to serve you. Now, the gift I was talking about, I want to give you again a reference. You've got publicity. Now what? What do you do with it? A single shot is great. What do you do with it afterward? Now, I'll tell you, when I had the PBS special about me, Juliet, I wouldn't say it was a long time ago, but I had a stack of VHS tapes on my counter in the office.
How old are you? Okay, audience, do you know what a VHS? I'm going to assume they do. If you don't, go look it up.
Go look at it, yeah. Uh, and, I say with a sign, hey, I was on PBS, or third person, Dr. Kaye was on PBS. Give this to your neighbor and your friends. That's publicity. And I can't get you on PBS today, but you're going to learn how to leverage what it is that you have got. richardkaye.com, RICHARDKAYE.com/leverage. And it'll take you, you'll enter your name and email address, and you're going to get how to leverage what it is that you've got. It doesn't make a difference if it's a podcast, if it's a little clipping in a newspaper, whatever it is, you want people to know that someone else is talking about you. That's what you get to leverage. It doesn't make you more important or better than. It just says someone else's. It's like my presidential award. Now, what does that mean? It was like, whoa. Does it impress people? I have no idea. But to me, it's important enough that it's on my email signature. Yeah, have fun with it.
It probably doesn't impress people anymore. We're so upset with politics.
Yeah, well, it's true. Yeah.
All right,
And that's
Richard.
why I say it's the White House. It's not the person. I don't care whether you're for or against Biden. It's the office that we should respect.
Yes. Richard, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Julianne.